here, Chris Sandau. He's a hockey coach who was originally just this week fired from his job because of postings on his Facebook. So this is in the news right now today, November the 11th, 2014. So Chris, tell us your story.
Oh wow, yeah. Fortunately, I was just let go recently. I was coaching 2 teams in North Delta with 2 different age groups, 11 and 12 and 13 and 14. And since this has happened, I've just been bombarded with interviews and such, mainly in the negative nature. And basically what the mainstream media has tried to do is basically put a spin on it to make me out to be a neo-Nazi. But I can assure you, those that know me personally know that I am the complete opposite of a neo-Nazi. I'm a very non-violent person. I'm certainly not a racist. Both teams I coached were multi-ethnic teams, and as a matter of fact, on my 11 and 12-year-old team, I had named an Asian kid assistant captain, as well as a half East Indian, half European kid, the other assistant captain. And on my older team, I had an East Indian kid that I would give more ice time to based on his performance. So, I don't know, that to me is certainly not a person that would seem racist. Wouldn't you agree? I was basically utilizing my players based on performance, not by skin color or anything of that nature, but yet mainstream media wants to make me out to be this evil neo-Nazi skinhead. But you see my appearance, and if you saw me on the street just going for a walk or whatever, you would have no idea. You would never think that I was a neo-Nazi. But anyway, it's really unfortunate.
Shows you the media, the way the media thinks, the way the media is programmed.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's and the timing of this happening too. It's we're just a few days prior to Remembrance Day. It seems to me like they just needed a scapegoat to plant all this on, and to ensure that nobody else that holds a influential position in as a profession ever speaks out against the true history of the World War I, II knowledge. Yeah.
Wow. So, should we have any questions from our studio audience here, our meetup group?
How do they find out that you were doing that on your Facebook?
Well, okay, yeah, this is a whole other story. First of all, I just want to say that the whole time I was with these kids, all I was doing was coaching, and I was definitely not pushing my beliefs out there to them or the parents. The only place where I decided to voice my personal opinions was, unfortunately, on Facebook. And unfortunately as well, none of these parents of these kids were friends on my Facebook page. So it wasn't like they were getting it in their feeds or anything of that nature. So they had to basically go out of their way and look at the page to see the information I was putting out. And for them to use that as the excuse to fire me is really it's unfair, because that basically states I now have absolutely zero freedom of speech. I have nowhere to outlet my personal opinions and all that, and so I just felt that was kind of a breach of my own rights.
So it's a freedom of speech issue in Canada. In fact, Paul Fromm's blog just today mentions this case. And Paul Fromm's been doing this for like 35 years in Canada, so it's getting known. But yeah, what about freedom of speech? It's just on Facebook.
Yeah, it's Yeah, again, I mean, they couldn't find any faults in my coaching, which to me is sad. You know, both my teams had winning records. They were both doing really well, and you know, I do think that there was people kind of behind the scenes, kind of conspiring and looking for an excuse to get rid of me. And as a matter of fact, for the younger team I was coaching, there were 5 other parent coaches that had applied for that position, and I think a lot of them were upset when they heard it was a non-parent coach being hired for the position. So, I mean, you had that aspect as well, right?
Yeah.
So they were looking for that excuse to get rid of me. They couldn't find it in my coaching ability, so they went to my personal background, my personal life, and found what I was posting and just immediately reported it to the association, the heads of the association, and they basically got rid of me. So it's I don't know. I just think it's a wrongful way of doing things.
Well, we're exercising our freedom of speech on YouTube here. I'm sure YouTube won't censor us. We'll see. YouTube has been good so far, so this is your moment, Chris. And we'll come back for more YouTube videos. We'll do more.
Yeah, that'll be brilliant. Keep the freedom of speech going.
And I want to mention we have a special guest here speaking tonight, Wayne, who's from Justice of Germans. You can see his website, justiceforgermans.com. He's got a YouTube channel, justiceforgermans.com. But for very good reason, Wayne doesn't be on camera, so Wayne's going to interview Chris off camera. So Wayne, and also give a talk of your own as we proceed after Chris. So you can ask questions or chime in any time.
Thank you. Great to be here, by the way. Thanks for the invitation. Chris, I only became aware of this myself in recent days due to some of the things that friends of mine had been posting on Facebook. I don't pay much attention to the mainstream media. I do understand that they're very sensationalistic, looking for dirty laundry, and not very much interested in truth. Mm-hmm. So I have a couple questions about if you could just elaborate a little bit in synopsis about your family and about your background.
Yep. My mother's actually born in England, and her father was in the Royal Air Force. So you know, I've got 2 sides. You know, part of my family was on the Allied side, and then a good portion of my family was on the Axis side. So I mean, my mother was born in England. Her mother was born in Munich, and on my father's side, my father's parents, they were both German. However, my grandfather was born in a German village in today what is actually the Ukraine. The town at the time was called Katzbach. This was before World War I. And so he actually came over to Canada before World War I had even started. He was just a little kid. And same with my grandmother. She was actually born in Alsace-Lorraine, also before World War I, and it was also part of Germany at the time, so she was also German, and she had also moved to Canada as well, and you know, later on they would meet there. But
So it's fair to say then that this history that we're being taught in our schools and on TV and through Hollywood and so forth, this is actually always been a big portion of your life, has it not?
yeah, I mean, the history, it does mean a great deal, and you know, as a kid in high school, I always had questions about the World War I, II history, but I really didn't know where to turn or where to look, and you know, once I got out of high school, I kind of became a lot more focused with you know, chasing the dream of playing professional hockey, and I eventually would play professional hockey in Germany for several seasons. And you know, once I got over to Germany, again, like the curiosities of
It was a chance for you to experience the German culture firsthand.
Yeah,
And so on.
Yeah, and you know, once I was there too, I would eventually come across documents from my great uncle on my mother's side of the family. So my grandmother's brother, who actually my middle name I was named after him, Maximilian. And you know, it's just really ironic. Once I got the papers from him during my 4th season over in Germany, I was going through the papers, and you know, sure enough, it's like a huge coincidence. One of the papers was the paper that showed where Great Uncle Max was buried, and he was literally buried literally across the street from where I had lived during my 2nd season over in Germany. And I lived across the street from that cemetery the whole time, not aware that he was buried there. It was just so I was just like, whoa, this is crazy, right? And you know, again, I was just, you know, the curiosity just kept getting keener and keener, and you know, like, the thing was, while he was alive, he would call to my parents from Germany to Canada and have discussions with them, but he never liked to discuss the World War II history in particular, and neither did his sister, my grandmother. They were always constantly like, no, we don't want to talk about it. And so my parents really didn't get much info, and I never got much info, so I was always left.
So, but it's really, it has come out of your curiosity of your own family history and your own family background on both sides.
Yeah.
That has caused you to want to know more about this history.
Yeah,
And to try and obtain the facts as best as possible.
for sure.
Interesting that some people would try to put that into the context of being a so-called neo-Nazi.
Yep.
When you were in Germany, did you follow the media over there regarding World War II history, or anything that was said in the newspapers to do with the war and things like that?
I mean, I saw a little bit of it on History Channel over there and stuff like that. But it was mainly from the point of view of the American side of the story. So you know, the information that I've just come across within really the last couple of years, it's really been eye-opening, and it really presents a whole another side of the story that I always kind of wondered about, because I don't know, the official story that we're told, it just sounded a little too far out there, you know, like to say that.
So
Yeah.
it was obvious to you in Germany that this was a completely taboo subject.
Well, yeah, I mean, I actually tried to discuss this with some of my teammates, and you know, they would just kind of say, "Yeah, we're not supposed to talk about it. Let's move on." And I'd be, "Oh, okay, fine," you know. But I never knew why they were like that. It's
Right.
just,
And you're speaking of German teammates?
yeah, German teammates. Yeah, I mean, all the teams I played for, they were mainly German, with the exception of maybe one or two other
Right.
imports.
So, and here we are in Canada, one of the so-called Allied nations, which was responsible for defeating Germany in World War II. And we are told, and today is the 11th of November, and we are often reminded that unless we learn the lessons of history, that we are doomed to repeat it.
Yep.
And it seems to me that there is a side of this World War II story that is yet to be told,
For sure.
and it is as much taboo a topic here in this so-called free country, which we are told even today, on this very day, that our fathers and grandfathers fought for this right for freedom.
Yeah, can I stop you there for a second?
Please
Yeah, I just, yeah, you know, it's just interesting, like, if you look at what's going on today, you know, you just take a step back and you look at it again, and you go, actually, no, I just recently heard a comment on TV, somebody said World War II was the war to end all wars. But sure enough, 70 years later, you know, there's been war after war after war, and it just doesn't stop. So, you know, to me, that idea that it was the war to end all wars is
That was
just...
World War One. It was World War
Oh.
95 years ago.
Okay, well, still, like, we still got war today, despite that. Whether it was World War One or two, right? It doesn't matter. The wars still continue, and you know, this idea that you know, Germany wanted to dominate the world and exterminate all the other races. You know, there isn't really any real hard documentation of that. And you look at what's going on today. I mean, which country really is taking over country after country after country? Well, it's the USA, and if you look at the even bigger picture, I mean, who's pulling the strings of the USA? Well, Israel, and
The Rothschild Zionists, the bankers, Rothschild Zionists.
yeah, and you know,
including
Israel, yeah, Israel's pulling the strings, and I mean, what are the Israeli people doing today in Palestine? I mean, I don't think to this day they've really stopped killing and kicking them out of their homes and all this kind of stuff since World War II all the way to this day. It's still going on.
Exactly, true.
So, but here you are, born a Canadian, correct?
Yes, yes.
Canadian citizenship, and you've always lived around this area, other than when you moved to Germany.
Yep.
And one of the passions of most Canadians is, of course, ice hockey.
For sure.
And you started playing at a very early age, I presume?
Yeah, I was 9 years old.
Mm-hmm. So that's a Canadian favorite pastime
Yep.
that you grew up with. You saw a potential for yourself to, you probably played at pretty high levels, rep teams and so on, I would imagine.
Yep. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
And so you saw a possibility for yourself to even turn pro at some point in time.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, you're a typical Canadian kid from what you're telling me here.
Yes.
Okay? And how long have you, it's been reported that you lost your coaching job. Now, I understand that would be a volunteer position.
No, actually, it was a paid job. As a matter of fact, many associations now have taken the stance where they're all kind of decided that they want to hire non-parent coaches.
I see.
And if, you know, the ironic thing about it is they're doing this to kind of, you know, shove the political side outside of the door.
Right.
Yet it really hasn't disappeared.
Okay. And I totally relate to that because I'm a former hockey coach myself,
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
going back many years, so I understand the politics of hockey in Canada.
Yep.
All right, and for how long have you been coaching minor hockey?
Well, this year would have been my second year, but you know, unfortunately, I was like 2 months into the season. So,
Okay.
a few years prior to that, I coached in a junior league for one season. Unfortunately, it's a junior league that is no longer in existence. It folded after 2 years. So, but it was really fun. It was a great experience when I was a part of it. So.
Right. Okay. And so you are also one of probably, I don't know, 400 million people on Facebook
Yes.
who happens to have a profile on there. And you
I was
were
banned.
Just this week, you're banned?
Yeah. Well, the day
okay.
after.
So let's put that into the past tense.
Yeah.
Now officially banned by Facebook. Now, I mean, you use your Facebook, no doubt, like any other person out there, to talk about your family, things going on in your life, and so on. And you have legitimate friends on there who you know in person, as well as probably friends, contacts around the world, like everybody else. And you share pictures and things like that
For sure.
interest you, and so
Yeah.
on. Now, and the media, as I understand it, has focused primarily on the fact that you had a couple of emblems of so-called Nazi. There actually is no such thing as a Nazi.
Yeah.
National Socialist symbolism, the swastika,
Yep.
war memorabilia,
Yep.
this type of thing. Okay.
Yeah.
So, at any time, did you attribute that to any kind of a philosophy of hate?
Certainly not. And I just want to say that the term Nazi to me is like a derogatory term. It's like using the K word to describe a Jewish person, or the N word to describe a black person. Because the problem with the word Nazi is it's the image of that word is connected to basically that of sheer evil. A person that thinks he's above everybody else.
This word actually was never used by the National Socialists in Germany to describe themselves. This was a term that developed before the National Socialists were actually elected, and it was contrived by their enemies.
Yeah.
So this is a term that has been picked up and widely used since that time. And it itself was intended as a derogatory term. It is the so-called Nazi.
Well, I mean, everybody
epithet.
will associate with that word as just utter negativeness, right?
Exactly.
So it's a word that I myself do not want to be attached to, because I'm not anything like that described.
Of this image that people commonly portray. That has nothing to do with you. You're not a person who is known to have been ever hateful in your entire life. Is that correct?
No, that's totally correct. I've never been hateful towards anyone. The only time I might actually throw a punch is if somebody punches me, and then I'll be okay, let's go. But that's it, right?
So in self-defense only.
Yeah.
And you've never been? Have you ever been political in Canada at all?
I've voted for the Green Party a couple times.
Okay, but have you ever had any kind of political involvement in Canada?
No.
Okay, so you've never been associated with any parties whatsoever. So
No.
Would it not be fair to say that it is an absurd statement for a member of the mainstream media to ask you if you are part of a Nazi party, or that you would like to see a so-called Nazi government in Canada? Am I quoting that correctly?
That's a very unfair statement.
Good question. Good point.
Yeah, it's very unfair. Again, due to what that label is associated with in every the majority's eye. Like, you know what I mean? It's just looked in as a negative light.
In your dealings, and there have been many in the past week. How long has this been going on for? 2 weeks now?
Yeah, well, the media coverage started basically just on last Wednesday.
Okay. In your dealings with the press, with the media, with TV, etc., now, do you feel that they were really interested to get your background, to get your feelings on record, and to tell the truth about this whole incident? Or did you get the impression, based upon what actually came out of those interviews, that they were being entirely sensationalistic and unfair and biased?
They were totally being unbiased, and I can give a really good example
Unbiased
of
or biased?
Biased.
Biased. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, they were being biased. As a matter of fact, I tried to get an interview with CKNW, because I heard that they were just labeling me neo-Nazi this, neo-Nazi that, so I called them up, and they set me up with this interview with this guy named Drex, and so he did the interview, and he basically took the stance that I was a neo-Nazi, and basically just came at me with all these questions, and of course I answered them all as best I could, and after the interview, actually towards the end of the interview, he even said, "Man, Chris, this has been one of the hardest interviews I've ever done. I can't air this." And I was like, "Whoa, why is that?" He's like, "Well, I'm worried about losing my job." And I'm like, "Oh, really?" And then that was the end of the discussion.
Can you tell us who that was?
Drex.
This is radio, right?
Drex?
Radio from CKNW.
Local radio station. Right?
Now, is this his first name, last name?
I'm guessing first name. But anyway, I just want to point out that probably roughly a few hours after that interview, he went online and posted a little blurb in his blog. He said, "I just spoke with Christopher Sandau, and he spoke of nothing but utter hatred. It was so terrible I couldn't air the interview." And I'm like, and so I didn't even.
So this man is a liar.
Well, yeah, he wouldn't even air the interview, right? Like, just air the interview, let everybody hear it. 'Cause,
Okay.
I mean, all I was doing was just giving him a spiel about.
Can you think of anything that you might have said during that interview that would have given this man the impression that you were being hateful towards anyone?
Well, I mean, all I did was kind of give out some evidence that was presented in past revisionist trials, in regards to the Holocaust.
Which are a part of the public record in Canada.
Yeah, they're public record for sure. I mean, just look up the Ernst Sandau trials, David Irving trial, Dr. Frederick Tobin trial.
And that is also fully documented on the website called the IHR.org, Institute for Historical Review, run by a historian by the name of Mark Weber. And you can find all of the documents of that trial, which occurred in 1988, I believe, here in Canada.
And that's all I was doing was stating the evidence from those trials, right? And then the guy basically said, "Oh no, this is way too hateful. I can't put it on record."
Okay, and then he's also attributing this to you when you were only quoting what is a matter of record.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. Now, how has this affected your social life at this point in time?
Amazingly, I've actually had a lot of friends reach out to me. They're still inviting me up to play hockey with them, at least, so that's a good thing. From the professional side of things, at least with the coaching, I mean, I don't know if and when I'll ever coach again now that this has happened. So at this point, it's really hard to say. But again, the image that's been portrayed by the media of me.
Now, let's just go back for a minute to discussing Facebook again. How many friends approximately did you have on your Facebook list?
The funny thing was I didn't have any friends on it when I was posting this information. I was actually pretty much done with Facebook, and then all of a sudden I came up with all this information. I'm like, maybe I'll just post it here, right? But so I mean, I didn't have any friends on it to view it. So if you wanted to view that information, you would have to look me up, go out of your way to look me up to find it. So.
Now you were stating before that due to the political nature of minor hockey in Canada, that there were people who had some jealousies towards you.
Yeah.
Envious of your position, who would like to have had the job that you got.
And eventually they achieved that.
Right. Now, how would those people have gotten to your Facebook, which was private?
Well, it was still. I had left it there for the public, to view it if they wanted to,
I
right?
see. Okay.
But I don't know. I just didn't like being told that, I had to make it private, period, so that nobody could see it. You know what I mean? It's like, well, what's the point of that? Then I got like zero.
Okay, so anybody who had done a search for your name would have been able to find that particular profile.
Yes.
Okay. Now you don't have another website of any sort, do you?
Well, I'm on Twitter.
Okay. As is half the world now. But you don't have your own personal website that has to do with anything political, historical, no blogs, no YouTube channel of your own?
No.
Okay. So you've never gone out of your way to promote anything, have you?
No. I mean, this is kind of the... I've posted stuff in the past on Facebook, about 9/11 or the JFK magic bullet conspiracy, or Vietnam.
Right. And is it fair to say that nobody has ever taken strong objection to that, to the point where you've lost your job because you questioned who may have been responsible for the JFK assassination or for the 9/11 event?
Yeah, I had jobs during the time I was posting that information as well, and I never had a problem at all.
Right. Okay. So is it fair to say then that this seems to have been a personal attack upon you, based by somebody who was jealous of your position, who deliberately went out of their way to find this little bit of information to try and dig up something on you,
Yep.
with which they could then get you out of your position and perhaps have themselves inserted in that position?
Yeah, well, for sure. But you know, I gotta be honest. There were kind of a number of people from both teams that I coached. I think that were kind of looking to find a way to oust me, and it didn't help. Things didn't help. It didn't help me. You know, there was this one kid in particular. That was like borderline could have made my A1 team, right? And I figured in my mind he was going to be 100% set with the A2 team, but unfortunately the A2 coach cut him to house, which is like the third team, and I honestly thought that they had no business cutting him to house. And even, I just want to bring up too, this kid was also like half East Indian, half probably Jewish because his last name was Sternberg. But anyway, I went out of my way and I called this kid up when a couple of my kids were sick. I called this kid up from house to help him out because I thought he was kind of unfairly treated by cutting him all the way to house. And right away, all the parents on the A2, from the A2 team, were like, hey, what? That's unfair. Why are you bringing this kid from house all the way to your A1 team when you should be calling from our A2 kids, right? And so, I also angered that group. And on top of it, the assistant coach of the A2 team, he's the husband of the vice president of the association who hired me for the job. So I had upset her because I went against her husband's will.
So we see here a lot of political intrigues going on.
Like I said, there's a lot of
jealousies and little grievances, and this was an attempt to.
There was a number of people.
Right. Okay. Who had themselves objectives which were, it sounds to me, quite sinister in nature. Tell me a little bit about your hockey team that you coached. Would this have been a hockey team of strictly white youth?
Again, no. They were multi-ethnic teams. We had East Indian, Asian, and I mean, the most part white, but there was a good mix of kids.
Right, and you live in a very multi-ethnic, multiracial city in Delta, BC.
Well, I live in Langley, actually.
Multicultural.
But North Delta Surrey.
Right,
Multicultural, yes.
Delta Surrey area, very multicultural.
Yeah.
Okay, you've never felt uncomfortable living there?
No, not at all. And again, like I treat all these kids completely fair, in my opinion. I utilize them based on their performance, and I mean, like I said, there were kids from other ethnic backgrounds getting more ice time than European backgrounds. So I mean,
how long did you say you've been involved with coaching minor hockey? 3 years?
Well, this would have been my second season in minor hockey.
All right, and in that time, how was the interaction with parents generally?
I mean, yeah, for the most part, they always were kind of positive around me. Although, actually, there was an instance with the older team I coached. I had a parent kind of rub me the wrong way. She kind of approached me during a practice, and she said to me, like, hey, you realize we all have lives? And I'm thinking to myself, like, that's rather unfair to say. I didn't say anything at the time because I was still running the practice. I'm like, well, I'll talk to you later, right? And then I came out afterwards and I was really upset. I'm like, it's kind of funny you say that. It's like, and I don't have a life? Like, I'm driving all the way out from Langley to give your kids extra practices every week, extra practice time, help them get better, and I'm not getting paid an extra dime for this extra ice time I'm given. Plus, the ice time itself is free, so the parents are they're not paying.
So it
any
had
extra.
nothing to do with you particularly.
No, but she was upset because I was giving these kids extra practice time.
Which meant that she had to come to the more often, and
and
so on and so forth.
So then the next thing on top of that was I put out an email a few days later, stating to all the parents of that particular team. I said in the email, I said to all the parents, if you are a parent that doesn't enjoy spending time in the arena, or if your kid doesn't have a passion for the game, there's a good chance that you've registered your kid for the wrong team. And I went on to say, house hockey is a viable option for those that want less commitment, so their kids can just enjoy the social aspect of the game and
for fun and
because house hockey is only twice a week. It's real basic, hardly next to no commitment. But rep hockey, everybody knows there is a certain level of commitment, and for the most part, the majority of kids do love the game that play rep hockey, and they all want to get better. That's why they're there, and so forth. So but there was a small number of people that didn't like having the extra ice time, and there was a couple of kids as well on the team that you could totally tell from their work ethic and practice that they weren't really enjoying it that much. So I kind of hinted it out there, like, maybe you guys really did put your kids in the wrong team, because they were bringing down the kids that wanted to work hard and get better, right?
But certainly, that is totally unrelated to the things which you are being in the press, at least, being charged with, and yet there is no criminal charge against you to this date by anyone concerning anything that you have done, is there?
Yeah, no,
so,
thank God.
Would it not be fair to say that you are being tried in the media for something which is not in fact a crime in this country, and that you have only been utilizing your right to free expression, and yet in a very limited capacity within the realm of the internet, which is available to all of us?
Yeah.
Now, again, today is Remembrance Day, and we are being reminded that our forefathers fought for our rights and freedoms in this country, and one of those rights is fundamental, is the right to free speech and to express one's own point of view and opinions, and it allows us to have healthy discussions on issues. And you think it's fair to say at this point in time that somebody has been violating your right to that?
Well, for sure. I mean, for the mainstream media to label me what they've labeled me, it's brought a lot of negativity in my life now. I mean, I get people tweeting at me all this negative stuff, like it's...
So I would have
never got this before.
So as a result of this action, people who have no knowledge of you whatsoever are now seizing upon that and are now stalking and harassing you, at least on the electronic basis. Is that fair?
Yes. So far, thank God, it's only been through Twitter that's happened.
Right, and that is bad enough. And I have been subjected to that sort of thing myself in the past. Now, that is bad enough. We understand that there's a problem in this country that we are often told about called bullying in the playgrounds. And we are being taught all the time to stop bullying. And we have the anti-bullying campaigns going on all the time within our school system here. And yet these are adult people who are now bullying you on the basis of fully bogus reports that are being put out about you in the Canadian media, correct?
Yes.
When we see the sign of a swastika, everybody has a very strong reaction to it. So it's just, there is like other ways, just putting out without a very strong symbol that really brings.
But on Facebook, we see that on TV every day.
I don't.
We see it in the media every day. We see swastikas are common.
I just want to
Really? Because I don't have a channel.
I just want to give you an example.
I don't watch TV.
I just want to give you an example. Like there's an image of there's a swastika, right, and then below it there's a link that you can click on, or you can look up the greatest story never told, right? And it just says above the swastika it says, if if you haven't, or if you look at this symbol in a negative light, then you should look up, right? And then it gives a link, and it's got the big picture of the swastika, right? But if the people actually took the time, which they obviously don't, and look at the video, they'd be like, oh, okay, he's not attributing the swastika to hate and so forth, right? But instead, the people are so lazy, they just go, oh, swastika, neo-Nazi, done.
But that's exactly it. Yeah, exactly. That's the initial reaction, and I think that's what happened. That's why the unfairly treatment, because it was so easy to use against.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I stated that already,
It's like, if they wanted something against you, you delivered it right to their doorstep.
I did, essentially, but
things like Hollywood movies, television shows, it's common to see swastikas in a negative light. It's not a surprising thing to see in media.
No,
or on
It
Facebook.
is
Facebook's
always in that light. Now, it was never asked of this young man
Yeah.
into what context he was doing this.
Because they don't, because
Yeah,
only,
what context?
only
What's the
one
context?
parent actually.
they just want it their way, and
Only one parent actually approached me and had a real intellectual discussion about it, and he was like, "Yeah, you know what, man, I agree with you now." And he was like, he's blown away by all the facts, right?
Yeah.
But to the lazy folk that just look at it and go, neo-Nazi garbage, right? That's what basically they did.
if they want to ruin someone, they can. They did that to Michael Jackson, We don't
Yeah.
have to go far.
Yeah.
I think he was persecuted, Michael Jackson.
Oh, he was. He was
yeah.
not ever what they were
treated-
told.
treated very unfairly.
If they want to ruin someone, they can, because they have media is the greatest tool ever.
I think for a similar reason too, Michael Jackson.
Because he saw something that was not out in the public.
Mm-hmm.
So, let's just try and summarize this, as I understand it here, is that it seems to me that your rights to privacy have been violated. You have been, would you agree with that?
Yeah, for sure.
Your rights to free speech, free expression of ideas within this country,
That's what's really been violated.
within this country has been violated. Others have used their right of free speech to accuse you of things that you now say are totally untrue, and yet you are not being permitted the right to make your case in your defense. And it is in fact an offense in this country to raise these issues.
Mm-hmm.
Would you describe what I just described as being living in a free country?
Yeah, I mean, this to me is a prime example of, as much as we like to think we live in a completely free society where we have complete freedom of speech. This is a prime example that we truly don't. The fact that I'm incapable of putting out information that gives a different side of a story. You know what I mean? That just,
I find it totally incomprehensible that in a country such as this, with the reputation that this country has and tries to put out for itself within this world, that we have a country where you can be accused of something based on very limited information and then not be permitted your right to even if what they were saying is true, you're not permitted to present evidence in your own defense on those charges. Things in this case, it sounds, are just being assumed. Facts are being assumed, which are clearly not the case, according to what you've testified here before us today.
yeah, for sure. It's
It's a witch hunt.
yeah,
It is, yeah.
And you are now an easy target for every moron out there who has been reading the daily fish wrapper newspaper, as I call them, fish wrappers, and seeing these sensationalistic headlines and making themselves feel really big and really smart by calling you names on Twitter and other social media.
Yeah.
Now, I really hope for your benefit that it does not escalate beyond that at this point, and that is the point of our having this meeting and this interview tonight with you. And we do want to present this evidence to the world, and we hope that many people will view it and make up their own minds. And it is certainly my view that you should be reinstated in your position as a minor,
as
a minor
well.
hockey coach.
Yeah, I
I think we all feel
appreciate
that
it.
way.
And I just want to say one more thing. There's more things in life. There's more things to life than teaching people how to put a little black rubber disc into a 6x4 net. That's the way I look at it. That's what I was doing for profession. So really, to me, at this point, it's not the end of the world that I've lost this job.
But certainly this could have future ramifications for your employment
Yeah.
on any level.
Yeah, I mean, it could. It certainly could. But I just hope that people will see this example and other people will eventually stand up and not conform to what society tells them to be and live.
And simply
Go
go
on.
along to get
Just
along.
simply go
Which is
along,
the very thing
go
that
along
they
with-
constantly accuse Germans of doing, is it not?
Yes. Well, yeah. I just wish that people wouldn't just go along with the lies they're being fed and just say, "Hey, enough's enough," and realize at the end of the day, we're being told to jump by the central bankers, and how high is not the proper answer to these guys. And
But
we
on,
should.
on a,
Yeah, good to talk about the central bankers. That's a
absolutely.
large issue,
But,
yeah.
but with regard to the media, people are also just going along with what the media is telling them about you on this very personal level. Okay?
Yeah.
Rather than standing up and questioning it and figuring out the facts for themselves. Right? And not challenging the media for their very biased reports. And I find that really disgraceful that Canadians are behaving that way.
The whole world believes media because that's what we were. That's
Yeah,
how
we're
we
fed.
grew up.
That's
to,
true.
To be believed.
And we
But,
can't blame people, they're just receptive.
and they don't research. You said they don't research the truth. They accept it. It's like the truth is first ridiculed, then opposed, then accepted as self-evidence, right? Self-evident. It's.
So I guess people should have some responsibility that, we kind of allow ourselves to be controlled. We allow ourselves, so we should take responsibility to think for ourselves and not just accept the media.
Absolutely.
People don't.
The whole thing is like it's like a deck of cards. If one day everybody just all wakes up at the same time, the deck of cards goes.
Yeah, but that's why we are kept. That's why everybody's like. And exactly, hockey is one of the tools. Like, people get so upset if the hockey team loses,
Yeah,
but
it's crazy.
nobody cries that what's going on in Africa and all the civilian deaf and children. Nobody.
And most of these games, especially in the highest levels, most of the games are fixed anyway.
Wow.
It's just it's just a show, and a lot of these teams or players are told beforehand, like, listen, we need you to score this amount of goals, or we need this many touchdowns, whatever, right? And then they get the result. But everybody thinks, oh yeah, we saw a completely legit game.
Look how mainstream media is treating you. It says November 6th is Saturday, right? November 6th. Wednesday was November 6th. Today's Monday, November 11th.
Yeah.
Because people on YouTube are going to be watching this 10 years from now. Which is give some credit to YouTube and a lot of thanks to the internet in general, because the mainstream media has been beating on you for the last 5 days, right?
Yeah.
So this is going to go on YouTube immediately, like tomorrow. So this is your chance to speak against the mainstream media. So this is going on. So we have to thank YouTube for this and the internet in general. Otherwise, mainstream media is all that would ever be known about you, right?
You are not a neo-Nazi, correct?
Yeah, I'm
So
the
say
furthest
that right
thing
now.
from a
Say it now.
neo-Nazi.
You are not a neo-Nazi. If that's the truth, this is your time to say that.
I'm honestly the furthest thing from a neo-Nazi.
May I ask your opinion then? What is your opinion of people who call themselves neo-Nazis?
I think they're ignorant. They don't really know the facts of what really went on in history.
Good point.
And yeah, I mean, they're just, to me, they're extremists. They're extremists. They are real extremists, hardcore.
They're just extremists on a different side of that wrong story.
Yeah, but they're uneducated. Just, you know, they're basically giving, or they've basically set the image for today's standards of anybody that wants to present a positive image for the National Socialists. It's almost impossible because of the image being portrayed by the neo-Nazis. They've, you know, these neo-Nazis and biker gangs and so forth, they've made it, you know, ridiculously difficult to change the image.
And so what you're saying is that there are aspects of National Socialism that the general public is not aware of whatsoever, are totally ignorant of what National Socialism was able to accomplish in Germany at that time.
They accomplished many great feats. I mean, suddenly rising from nothing all of a sudden to having something. And you gotta look at all the good things. Like, I mean, the National Socialists, they were the first people to introduce 40-hour work weeks when all the employers had to provide proper bathrooms and cafeterias for their workers. You know, like, this was all.
And of course, we don't have time to go into all of the details here, but what the point is that what you're trying to say is that there is a side to National Socialism that most people have heard nothing about.
Yes.
Which occurred and which people are very ignorant of. And is it fair to say then that that is what your intention is, to try, that you would hope to intrigue people about this, that they would learn more about those issues that haven't been discussed in mainstream history and on television and so forth?
Yeah, for sure.
Things which drastically alter when you realize these things, they drastically alter your view on that part of history. Is that a fair assessment? Yeah,
I mean, that's what I was trying to do, is basically, you know, show a completely different story, you know, and try to show what they accomplished.
Right, and of course, anybody who of adult age, we should all, you know that there are two sides to every story.
For sure.
And so this is a story that has sadly been not told or undertold.
Well, exactly. So, I mean, you look at Libya, like Gaddafi. I mean, I'm sure there's another story that we're not being told, right? Or maybe Saddam Hussein. I'm sure there's another.
Afghanistan, the Bogus scenes.
9/11.
Iraq and all of these things. Okay, so all right. So that's the point. That's the point. We just basically wanted to confirm if that's where you're going with that. But now, with all that's happened, you know, obviously it hurts when something like this happens. But and I'm sure you're saddened by this. But may I ask you, are you planning any kind of violence or revenge against anybody?
No. Hey, no. There's not a violent bone in my body. Are you kidding me? Like, that's violent. I'm the least violent person you'll ever meet.
And
man.
just for the record, are you planning on any self-harm?
No.
Good.
Like, I don't hate anybody. So I just wanted to put information out, and I was hoping that, you know, this information could lead to possible awakening of, you know, what is going on in today's society, and you know, what's going on in places like Israel and Ukraine, and, you know, like, I don't know, like, sometimes you need to have a better understanding of the past so that you're able to understand what is going on today. Because if you don't have that understanding, you're constantly left in the dark, and you're just going to go along with everything you're being told, and you're never going to stand for anything.